So in step 27, they wanted us to change the values in our code because it's these values that introduce bias in our models. So they asked us to create a different range of random numbers. So when it's random 360, it will choose between 0 and 359. So I'm going to make it a different number, and then I'm going to have it go forward by even less. So I'm going to recompile to check that my code compiles. I'm going to set up and go. And by changing the values, I changed the bias in my model. We're about to start NetLogo variables, starting in step 28, which we have to entirely skip because in the software that you can download, so for those of you that downloaded the software, go for it. Go ahead with step 28. In step 28 and step 29, we're supposed to be creating our own variables in the user interface by clicking on the user interface below the Go button, and a slider will appear. Actually, first there's a control bar with button displayed. Like there's a whole bunch of ways we can create variables in the user interface with the software. And step 28 and 29 will work great for you if you downloaded the software. But if you're on your Chromebook or on the web interface like me, it won't work. So we have to get into our code and manually do it. All right. So I've been reading some of the documentation, figuring out how to add stuff to our code or add the variables to our code directly. So they want us to set some global variables. So I Googled NetLogo global variables, and I came up with the documentation and read around a little bit for it. But here's how we do it. We say globals, and then in brackets, we name the global variables that we are creating. So turn amount, minimum, increment, and maximum are the global variables they direct us to create. And then in the setup is where I'm going to set the values. If I don't set the values, then their default values will be 0. So I'm going to do that in the setup procedure. So I'm going to set turn amount. And the value I'm going to start with for that is 360. As I set values, I'm setting bias in my model. The maximum. And you can set different values. You can introduce different types of bias in your model. And then now that you have these global variables set, you can use them in your code. So I'm going to use turn amount in my Go method. I'm going to create increments or use the increment global variable in my Go method too. And I can compile, oops, spelling, it matters. Okay, we compile code, setup, go. And just examine how the bias changes my model. As your code gets more complex, and you use variables, the same variable in different places, that it's super helpful to have it defined in one place in the setup at the beginning. Ooh, oh, that's nifty. Oh, I like that. That's pretty. Okay, so that is how we are setting our variables without being able to do it in the interface. We're doing it directly in the code. Step 30 is in the code. We're changing the right turn command to right turn random turn amount. Looks like I already did that. Okay. Because I used turn amount here. All right, and we checked our code by compiling it and running it. And then we're going to save our model. Okay, to save your model, I would like you to save it for me as an HTML file. And just put your name in it so I know whose is whose. And that will save it as a file that you can